Good morning.
Hey, Carrie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. Nice to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well. I think we had a little glitch kept coming on here this morning, but only 2 minutes late, so that's okay.
That's all good.
Um, well, so I don't know if we've got anybody here yet, but if we do, I would love to know where you're tuning in from and drop a comment and just let us know what you're hoping to hear this morning. So it's and Brenda, just I guess first and foremost, this is obviously our first LinkedIn Live. You are a pro at this. You've been doing it for over a year. I know you were one of the probably one of the early adopters and early people that LinkedIn gave this option to. So maybe we can just start with a question of how did things evolve for you on the LinkedIn Live over the last 18 months, and what was your goal with it?
Sure. Well, first, I want to say thank you so much, Carrie, for picking me to be on your inaugural launch, of your series. I'm super excited for you. And yeah, I've been doing the live broadcast for about a year and a half, and I've actually kind of slowed them down a bit. Right now, I'm trying to retool and kind of recalibrate going forward. But I did get access back in November 2019, and I remember my first live. I think I was sharing this story with you yesterday. When I went live, I'm like, is it working? And I'm looking at the camera and I'm like, and I had another screen. I'm like, is it up? I'm like, oh, I'm live. So you learn a lot along the way. I don't want to say you make mistakes. You have learning experiences along the way. And I want to welcome anyone who's watching, and I want to encourage, if you are picking this up, if you could leave a comment, because that really will help out Carrie and I to know that the live feed is working. So it's kind of a technical thing. Is it actually broadcasting? And
Right.
then it also makes us feel really good, doesn't it, Carrie, when we see
Yeah,
people?
we just had a couple comments. We've got Catherine McLean tuning in from North Boston. We've got Carl coming in for the 45th parallel in Northern Michigan. I love the specificity of that, Carl. That's really cool. We've got Rich from Northville, Michigan. So thank you for tuning in. Yeah, and it's fun just to kind of know that there's people there watching. And we'd love to hear too obviously Brenda's a LinkedIn expert. She helps with profile optimization and other LinkedIn marketing strategies. And we're coming at this from the angle of recruiters and, Purple Squirrel Advisors. We hear every day what companies are looking for. We see how they evaluate resumes. So the two of us, if there's a job seeker out there, we've got different expertise that can, that complements each other actually really well. So,
Yes,
but
jump in, take advantage of us, right? We're here for you. If you have
exactly.
questions. And Carrie, do you
Yeah.
work with both employers and candidates, or are you mainly on the employer side helping them define talent?
Yeah. So the way that we operate, we are a retained search firm. So we get, hired by the company to find talent for them. And it's usually very specific. So, they're asking us to find a niche expertise. We've got Lucy tuning in from Detroit. Hi, Lucy. But we also have a database of candidates, and we certainly try to be helpful to candidates wherever we possibly can. But as a boutique firm, our volume is smaller than than a national firm would be. And so but yeah, our main client is the company, but then we're also balancing the client on the other side, which would be our candidates as well. So that's the balancing act that we have as recruiters, trying to represent everybody's interest there.
And
So
I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask anyways, because I was actually talking to someone the other day. I think he was looking for a new opportunity, and he said something like in a phrase. He's like, "I'm looking for that purple squirrel opportunity that's out there." So your company name, because people might be watching going, "Purple squirrel, what's that?"
yeah.
Could you tell us the backstory? Like, what is a purple squirrel, and why did you guys choose that for your company name?
Sure. So if you were to, we've got somebody from India. Hello,
Yay.
welcome. So purple squirrel is actually a widely used term within the recruiting industry. And if you were to Google it, the Wikipedia definition is, recruiting industry term referring to the elusive perfect candidate. So
Mhm.
it's kind of a behind the scenes term that I would say often gets used by recruiters. And
Mhm.
I spent about 10 years with a global recruiting and staffing firm. And, they would kind of say, work your A orders first, your B orders. And then if you have nothing else to do, work on the purple squirrels. And so those ones that made it really hard, whether it was a rural market, It could be a highly technical skill set. Something just made it extremely difficult. And so when I moved to Michigan, I'd spent my early career in Chicago. And when I came back to Michigan, I went out on my own at that point, and I was wondering, gosh, how am I going to compete in this market as, a single shingle? And I was like, you know what, I'm not even going to go for the A searches. I'm going to just do some purple squirrel hunting. And so I took on some really challenging projects, rural market searches. I placed a food scientist, all these different niche positions. And so then when I decided to start the company, that's kind of the origin of it. But, we've come to kind of adopt a different definition where we think every search is the search for a purple squirrel. When you're really thinking about getting it right, you're not trying to do anything related to square peg round hole. And so that's kind of how we came up with it. But it's funny, when we send our LinkedIn recruiter messages, we have the same subject line in every message we ever send. And it's, are you our purple squirrel?
Oh, that's
and it gets people's attention. So yeah. So but obviously this is our test run. It's our first LinkedIn Live. Brenda, maybe what were some of your learnings over the last year? I'm curious, like in terms of, how it evolved for you and the biggest learnings that you had either for yourself or for the community that you serve.
Yeah, when I think about what I've learned from being on LinkedIn Live, there's two categories. One is kind of from the production side, the technical stuff, that makes it really good. And then there's the learning that happens when you talk to fellow human beings who are really interested. You're building your network from there. And I'll start with a couple technical things that I learned early on. And one is, we talked about this before too. When you click live, you actually go live, but it takes about 30 seconds for it to come up. So you might be going, is this working? Is this working? Oh. And LinkedIn, we're streaming from, I think you're using StreamYard too, right, Carrie?
Correct. Yes, we are.
So from StreamYard to LinkedIn, I don't know if it takes 30 seconds for it to pick up, if the delay is built in for some reason. But whereas on Facebook or Instagram, if you hit go live, you're live like that.
Right.
So there's a delay, which it's a little cumbersome. So when Carrie says, hey, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from, it takes about 30 seconds for her to say that until, you guys are hearing it. And then another 30 seconds for you to type it in. And meanwhile, Carrie and I are like listening to crickets chirping. We're like, did anybody hear us?
Yeah.
So it's like, getting comfortable with the unknown is a big learning for me early on. But it's like the only way you're going to learn these things, Carrie, is by doing it. So I really admire you guys for getting your show out and kind of going with it. Another thing I learned, and I always tell my guests to look at the camera. So I have my laptop in front of me, and my camera's like, if I'm looking at you, I'm looking at you on screen right now, as opposed to if I'm looking at the camera, I'm going to tap it right now. That's my camera. So when I'm looking at the camera, it actually looks like I'm looking at you as the audience. And I remember, especially with a few of my shows early on, in the beginning of the pandemic, I was doing 5 days a week live. And after you're staring at this plastic device with a circle in it, you want a human connection. We as humans are wired to look at eyeballs of other humans.
Right.
Even babies, if they show you a picture of something bright and colorful and a picture of a person, the babies prefer to look at the person.
Right.
So it's really hard when you're a guest.
It is.
Delivering these.
I'm trying to practice it right now. It's so hard because I want to see your face and your facial expressions.
Yes.
But I know I'm not looking at the camera if I do that. And so it is hard it probably takes a lot of practice. So, and you would think I'd be good at it because we're doing so many Zoom interviews, but I probably often am looking at the candidate rather than the camera. So,
right. And there's little, I don't want to say hacks, there's techniques that I've learned. So if you are saying, oh, look, we have someone joining, then we both look down to see who the comment is from. And then if you ask me a question, I might look at you as you're asking, and then I look back at the camera. Because it really is hard to not look. I mean, even if I use my peripheral, you can probably see my hands kind of going around right now. Yeah. Like, what's she doing with her hands? You can't really see it. But from a technical standpoint, there's a couple. You learn as you go, and sometimes the Wi-Fi, kind of kicks out for one of us, and when that happens, the stream is actually hosted on StreamYard. So if I lose my Wi-Fi, you'll keep going. Okay. If you lose your Wi-Fi, I'll keep going because it's hosted on StreamYard. It's not on your laptop.
Right.
And it's happened to me once on both sides. The one time where my home Wi-Fi went out, it happens, right? Terry Bean was on the show with me. Do you know Terry by chance, Carrie?
So I've heard of Terry, but I've never officially met him.
Yeah, so he was on, and luckily, I mean, I don't think we had even talked about it, but I think I froze up a couple times and then I went off screen. And I could hear, I think I had it on my phone too. I was listening on the laptop and on my phone, and I could hear him going, "Oh, we lost Brenda. Okay, she's gonna try to get back on." And he just like, "All right, folks," he's like, "I guess I'm gonna run the show until she comes
So
back."
he kind of took over. Yeah.
Did.
That's
But
awesome.
you just learn by doing, and you just have a lot of fun along the way.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know, some of the posts you've made some posts on LinkedIn
Mhm.
and about some of the best technology that you've used. I've actually gone out and acquired some of those items that you've suggested, but I know you've suggested microphones and different things in the past. Over time, what have become your go-to pieces of technology that you utilize?
It's a great question. I actually created a blog. It's called "Hey Brenda, what tech do you use?" And I'm going to drop it in comments right now. And I did this because I mean, I don't get any sponsorships, and I mean, I buy my own equipment and things like that. So it's not like I'm saying here's the recommended, and I'm not
Right.
like a influencer who gets freebies or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I started getting questions from people when I started doing more of these videos, and they would say, "What's your camera? What's your lighting are you using?" And I have a couple different pieces. I mean, the one thing that's a really great investment, I have my webcam, and I'm making an adjustment to it right now. I have an external webcam that I bought pre-pandemic. I think it's called Logitech, and it's an HP 1080. I'm looking at the front of the camera to see that. That's really helpful because so many times people are using their laptop webcam, and you can't get the angle right. If you want to really be, straight across from your camera, you have to
Right.
prop your laptop up, and then it's hard to type.
Right.
So,
Yep.
and the quality is so much better, I feel like, on the external webcams. The laptops are getting closer, but they're not quite there yet. So when I
Right.
look back to some of my first videos, the quality was a little bit more grainy. It was on my
Yeah.
laptop, and the angle was up. It was like kind of looking up my nose as
Yeah.
opposed to being straight on.
Right.
And I'm in a home office where it's pretty well lit from this side. I've got a window on this side of me. This side, I usually will have either a ring light or a box light. Today, I
Okay.
have a ring light on me, so it's helping to balance the light out. That's important. Now, the office I'm in is pretty well insulated. I'm in kind of like a quad style, so it's like a half sunken in room.
Right.
So it's pretty well insulated. If it wasn't, I would probably get a headset and a microphone. And I've
Okay.
tried it both ways. It's a little bit better. If I do decide to do all of these and convert them into a podcast, I'll probably start using the headphones and microphone on a regular basis. But
Right.
the average person like you and I, Carrie, we can do this, right? Just with the
Right.
webcam.
Yeah. So no, those are all great points. And it's funny because we have done different videos where we've given tips on how to be successful with a video interview, and kind of what we're
Yeah.
doing here. Some of the same things apply, and so certainly with candidates, we've seen the up the nose angle, and
The
we've
lighting,
seen.
I mean, the lighting is the worst, especially if they're the windows behind them, and
Right.
then you've got all that backlight, and it makes their face really dark,
Right.
right? It's hard to see them.
Yeah, those things are important. And then just we also talk about the camera angle, the sound, testing those things before going into a video interview. But then the other thing is the background,
Yeah.
so trying to keep the background, clear of clutter and all of those things, which I think applies here too. Or if you have something of interest that's going to generate a conversation in the video interview, that's great. So you've got your books, you can
I've
see
got
that
my
you're.
book up here. I've got, this little letterboard thing, and this is something I'll change out the messages periodically on
Yeah.
it. But I did intentionally get these bookshelves. I've got white walls behind me, so I wanted to provide some contrast. And every once in a while, I'll move things around. So, now I've got a plant up here, and I'll
Yeah.
change the sign out. But yeah, it's like I think about the news reporters, Carrie, like if they're broadcasting live on location, they're not facing trees. They've got the building behind them. So it's kind of like they're staging what is behind them on camera. And candidates or interviewees should be the same way, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, by your shelf, I can see you've got a lot of books on there. So these are all clues, indicators of who you are. You know, they're kind of your brand. You're a learner, you're curious, you know, so that's just what I start to pick out. I see your pink hat that you have, or is it, I don't know if it's pink or purple, but so
yeah, that cowboy hat right over there. Yep.
Yeah. So I see just different things that I'm like, oh yeah, that's Brenda, you know, so
And here's
it's
my it's a crocheted piece of pie because I love pie.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I don't know if you saw it, Brenda, but we were at our office in Troy the other day, and all of a sudden we're sitting there in the office, and Allie just about jumped out of her chair. There was a huge deer, literally, like right by our window. We posted about it on LinkedIn.
Cool.
But we have, just like you have the crocheted pie, we've got little they're felted purple squirrels on our windowsill. And so I kind of joked, I'm like, yeah, we're used to seeing squirrels in this window, but I mean, the last time I saw a deer in Troy, I mean, it's never happened before. So it was kind of, anyway, it just made me think of that. But
yeah.
So what, in terms of, you know, I know that you're also a LinkedIn expert, and LinkedIn just continues to add features and kind of change things up. What are some of the newest things that you're noticing on LinkedIn with some of the changes they're making?
So I'm going to pull up my camera phone to show you guys something right now. Not my camera phone, my phone, to show you my LinkedIn profile. One of the newer features is a cover story. And I'm not sure if you've heard about this, Carrie, and this is something they launched for candidates. So when I first pull up my profile, it moves into a video.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to do this if I can on camera. So I'm going to click back and then click on to go to my profile again so you can see this. So, and this will play both from desktop as well as from mobile.
Interesting.
And right now, I think I've got the 20-second version of it. I think I heard John Esperian saying there's a 30-second limit now, so I might change that message out. But LinkedIn originally launched this as a way for candidates to say, you know, do an introduction. So, hi, this is Brenda Meller. I'm looking for a marketing director position in Metro Detroit. I have a lot of strengths in social media, and I'm going to hit the ground running. Please contact me on LinkedIn if we can discuss opportunities. So it's kind of like an elevator pitch.
Right.
That's a pre-recorded message. Now, right now, everybody doesn't have this feature yet, but what I will say is, and look at my profile again, you're going to notice that there's an orange ring around my headshot photo.
Right.
If you have that orange ring, then you have access to the cover story. If you've not updated your LinkedIn app, go back into the App Store and click on the LinkedIn and make sure it's the latest version. I have heard some people saying delete out the app and reinstall it. I don't know that does anything different, but I was commenting about this on LinkedIn on Friday, and I tagged LinkedIn Help and a couple LinkedIn employees that were pretty high up and in the post, and I did get a response back from somebody within their team that said it's not available to everyone yet. And I said, can you give us a time frame? And they said, we expect to have it in the next few weeks. Now, I'll be honest, when I hear that, you remember that story? I think it was the Money Pit. Do you remember when they were building the house and they would ask the contractors, when's it going to be done? Do you remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wrong in Tom Hanks. And the contractors would say 2 weeks. So the first time they said it, they're like, oh, great, 2 weeks.
Right.
And then throughout the movie, that's the running joke. When will it be done? 2 weeks. So when I hear, them say a few weeks, unless I really hear a specific date, everyone will have it by May 31st. I mean, I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. I know there's a lot of priorities that are moving, but I would hope they'd try to get it out sooner rather than later, especially to people who are open to work. And I did see there was a question that came in about open to work, Carrie. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I didn't see it. What was how effective is the open to work banner that is promoted on LinkedIn? So I have a certain feeling about it, but Brenda, you as the LinkedIn expert, I'd like to hear from you first. What are your thoughts on the open to work banner?
I'm wondering what your thoughts are, because you're coming from the perspective of a recruiter. You're looking for candidates. I actually want to hear, let's hear your perspective first, and then I'll share my perspective.
Well, so actually my perspective has evolved a little bit over the last several months. And so I guess initially when they started doing it, I was just I was not a fan of it, and I would not have recommended it to, some of our candidates and people that would call and say, hey, should I have this open to work banner? I just think that
I'm curious. I'm sorry to interrupt, but why not? Why didn't you like it in the beginning?
I just felt like it had a little bit of a needy feel to it or something. I don't know. It just kind of didn't give me the right feeling about it. And I will say that I think there was some confusion around it. I actually had a CFO friend of mine who all of a sudden that green banner showed up on his picture. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, like, are you looking? I thought I mean, last time I had talked to him, he was really happy in his role. And so I reached out because we did have a search that fit his background, but I'm like, I thought you were like great in your role. And he's like, oh my gosh, I am. I'm not looking to leave. And I'm like, well, you've got open to work banner on your profile picture. And he's like, oh, he meant to say that he was interested. I mean, he clicked the button because he's interested in like board work and other volunteer opportunities.
Okay.
And he didn't realize that like the setting actually asks like, are you wanting to show this behind the scenes for recruiters or do you want it to be a public? And so, thankfully I alerted to him and I don't know how long it was up, but not too long. And he took it down because that would have created some confusion with his employer and his staff, obviously.
Well, luckily you said something because who knows how many people saw it and didn't say something and went, wow, like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on it though?
So, and I just put into the comments right now, I did a blog about this because this is another question I get asked frequently, what are your thoughts on it? Because I do look at a lot of profiles and I mean, my perspective is just for me. I mean, everybody has a different perspective. What works for you, go, be you is what I say. But here's my perspective. As a marketer, I want to bring my intended target audience to read the things, to tell the story in the way that I want my story to be told.
Right.
If I see the open to work, and it's kind of like somebody called it a scarf because it's like a green half circle that appears on your photo. When I see that first, before I see anything else about your background, your story, your experiences, things like that, I mean, I kind of feel like it's a neon light that says desperate.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at. Like I used the word needy, but that was the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think, well, why are you open to work? Why aren't you working? Why, and we don't know the backstory about this, but it's kind of like, it's a quick judgment call that people would have. I would rather have someone see an intriguing headline on my profile that brings them back in and they read in my about statement. And then the about statement might start off with something really interesting and compelling. As an experienced marketing director, I know how to leverage social media to help businesses reach their goals, and I can help you. I'm currently looking for my next full-time position in Metro Detroit. Contact me at email@gmail.com. Like, then I'm interested in you. And I'm like, oh, this person sounds interesting. Oh, great. They're looking for a job. So it's the sequencing of it. It's I'm interested in you first before I pleasantly discover that you're open to work, right? As opposed to leading with that and then having to convince them that you're worth hiring or worth interviewing, and this is just me as a marketer. We as human beings, we make a lot of quick judgments and decisions about things. And in marketing, we're always trying to take all the information that we have and let's put it in the best light possible to reach our intended audience with the intended message. And we also have to think about, I always think about kind of the buyer's journey, the process that people will go through. And we want to bring them to the point that they're interested in us before they, maybe discover that we're open to work. Is my kind of philosophy on it. But I will say it is a feature on LinkedIn. It's a newer feature on LinkedIn. We know that LinkedIn, when they roll out newer features, they tend to give higher weight in the algorithm to people that are using those newer features. Okay. Now, I mean, I don't have LinkedIn Recruiter, Carrie, so I'm curious if the open to work badge, does that do anything different in the back end of LinkedIn Recruiter that helps people, or is there any change there?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, Catherine McLean also agrees with us. So Catherine's does resume writing and kind of she's in the similar space that the two of us are in and at a different angle. And she said she agrees. So so there is something to it. But the open to work button, I think, is very valuable in terms of for job seekers. And so, and I think the thing about it is, though, is sometimes we notice that people don't change that button when they land their new position. And sometimes they don't even change their LinkedIn profile. Yeah. So that's one other thing. But when we're searching, so first of all, we do a lot of really specific searching. So we've got a niche search right now. We're looking for people with furniture industry experience, and it's very specific. So we start running all of the criteria through LinkedIn, and it starts narrowing the pool, and then it'll say like the universe of people is 3,500 that have these keywords, these job titles, the location. And then, 3,000 is a lot to go through. So then we start trying to figure out, okay, how do we make this more specific even more? And so then there's like maybe 5 criteria. One of them is open to work. So we're always going to click that. We're going to say who's raising their hand, who's interested, who wants to hear from us right now. So we start looking at
I'm sorry to interrupt. Is that open to work? Is it open to work recruiters only, or open to work to everyone, or is it all into one bucket?
It's the open to work, and then they may or may not have the green banner. So the open to work everybody is them publicly saying I'm open to work. But there's probably, I would say 80% of the people that we would contact that have that button checked do not have the green banner, but they've got the back end open to work.
For recruiters only, which doesn't.
For recruiters only, yes. And then there's a couple of other things that are interesting. One of them says is more likely to respond.
Okay.
No idea. So that's somebody that that LinkedIn is telling us, hey, this person's not checked the open to work button, but you have a good chance of reaching them. They're more likely to respond. Then another one says engaged with your brand.
Yeah.
And another one is like past applicants.
So can I give some thoughts on what I think that might mean? What was the text he said? Likely to respond was one of them.
Yeah.
So my hypothesis, I have no way of validating. This is just my own experience being on LinkedIn. I would think that is people who are likely to respond to messages because they respond to past messages. That's my guess.
Sure. Okay.
So people that are looking in their inboxes, their direct message box on LinkedIn, and whether it's a recruiter message that's coming in or someone else, I think they're active in the inbox. So that's kind of higher likely. And then what was the other category? Engage with your company, or
engage with your talent brand. So they're either a company follower or they've done something that is directly related to our page, or I doubt me specifically, but I'm thinking probably the Purple Squirrel Advisors page. So. Yeah.
Okay.
So
or the employer that you're searching for, like if you're hiring for ABC company, can you look to see that they are engaged with the ABC company page?
No, well, I guess we could. Yeah, we could see if they're following it for sure. Yeah, and that's not a bad. I don't know if we could search based on whether they're following certain pages, but definitely we can and there are times when I'll scroll down if I'm looking at a candidate's page and I'll say, what other companies are they following? So that gives you a sense of their interest.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to point out one thing on the open to work. And so, we message people all the time that have the open to work button clicked. And then sometimes we just get like a decline and then once they've declined it, we can't message them anymore. Or they'll just say, I'm not interested. And, we're actually, I know that there's a lot of complaints out there that people get messages that are, addressed to the wrong person or just not specific in any way, or the job's not applicable. I mean, we try to be, honed in on, hey, this person's background fits what we're looking for. And I personalize almost every in-mail message I send. I'll say, based on your experience with XYZ company, I think you could be an ideal candidate. So I'm showing them, I read your profile, I looked at it.
Yeah.
But when somebody just declines and they're open to work, it's so confusing because, controllers, I was thinking of controller searches specifically, but all job descriptions are not created equal for the same position. Okay. And so if somebody's declining just based on a job description or, a job title or something along those lines, it would really be smart if you're really open to new opportunities to at least have a 10-minute call with us.
Right.
And then we can keep them in mind if something else comes along that is a better fit.
That's a good point. And I actually heard, Carrie, along those lines too, that you should never decline an interview or a conversation. The things that you decline would be a job offer, and at some point, if you learn about the company, you say, you know what, this isn't a really good fit for me. And I'm wondering in some of those situations too, if the people really, maybe they put the open to work, but they're really not actively looking. And then they get an opportunity that they kind of see as lukewarm. I'm not all that interested in it. And I don't even want to spend the 10 or 15 minutes on the phone to learn about that opportunity. I mean, it could be kind of a passive, a way of responding. Right. But you're saying it would be helpful for you, even if a candidate said, thank you for thinking of me. I'm really not looking to move into another smaller company. I'd like a larger.
Sure.
That feedback would be helpful, but they may kind of feel like, is there trust? You know, can I, if
Yeah.
I tell you that, are you going to tell my boss or my coworkers or other
Yeah.
recruiters? And if I'm trying to be looking quietly, maybe I don't want that information to be public, right? So it's hard
Yeah, and I mean, confidentiality is a huge, huge deal. Like our
Yeah.
candidates need to trust us, our clients need to trust. We're often running confidential searches. So we've actually, even in the last year, we've done more and more where we put an NDA in place just so everybody knows, like, your information is going to be kept confidential. Our client's information is going to be kept confidential. But like, I mean, that is something that's really, really important to us, is that we would never want to harm a candidate's current job or anything along those lines. But on the topic of just even the feedback, yeah. So just say, hey, you've messaged me about a controller position, and really, I'm trying to turn my career into this, other area, or it could be, like you said, company size or something along those lines. And then, okay, great, we'll keep you in mind. But the other thing is, we always say, hey, if you know somebody, let us know. And there's probably like less than 5% of people ever refer. And I know you're like, you definitely have that go-giver, like that,
I was just
that
thinking,
mentality.
if you have jobs that you're having a hard time filling, Carrie, let me know. And I mean, I've got a network of job seekers I'm working with, and I would always be more than willing to hand pluck people and send them your way if you're looking for folks. So.
But I mean, it's a great, so like there have been a few instances, like we reached out to somebody, 3 or 4 months ago about a really specific search. And he said, hey, I'm not interested, but you should follow up with these 3 people.
That's
And
great.
I mean, and they were all great candidates. And I just remembered him, and I was like, gosh, if he ever calls and he needs my help, like he will, like 100%, like he'll be at the top of the list to call back. Like, you really remember those people that kind of have that giving spirit, and they want to help their colleagues. They want, and it's like that pay it forward mentality, I think, is really important. And that's another way to decline the open, the message and still be helpful. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
So, what else? I mean, so we're it's 9:35, and we could spend another 10 minutes or so. I don't, if there's anybody watching and you have other questions on this topic, happy to answer. But Brenda, what else is trending right now, and what are you looking at as an interesting, there's things are evolving constantly, with the workforce, and
I mean, I'm going to just highlight a couple of newer features that some people may not be aware of on LinkedIn. And we talked about the cover story video. It's not available to everyone yet. Eventually it will roll out. We're not sure when. But the other feature that's kind of in that same area is name pronunciation.
Yes.
So Carrie Chochette, right? Is that how you say it? Did I say it right? It's
actually Chochet.
Chochet. See, I said it wrong. So if you have a name that is commonly mispronounced, and I know you, Carrie, I mean, like, I go back, but in my head, I'm going to Chochet it. I'm going to remember it. But in my head, I always say it Chochette, so it was, it's confusing. And for me, Brenda Meller is not really that mispronounced. Every once in a while I get a Miller or a Mueller or something like that, but it's usually pretty straightforward. But LinkedIn has a feature that you can actually add a name pronunciation. I'm going to hold my camera phone up again. See that little microphone icon that's right next to my name field? So the speaker icon, I should say. On your phone, there's a way that you can go in and you can record a name pronunciation. It gives you 10 seconds. So I'm an opportunistic marketer. If you give me 10 seconds, I'm going to use 10 seconds. And I'm not just going to talk about my name. I mean, if you listen to mine as an example, I will tell you how to pronounce my name. And then I have a little plug for my business. If you're looking for help on LinkedIn, contact me. So my advice for anyone who's watching this is enable that name pronunciation feature. If you're a job candidate, you could say, hi, this is Brenda Meller. I'm looking for a marketing director position in Metro Detroit. So we can use the 10 seconds to reinforce what we're looking for. And I always like to tell candidates, be very specific, job title and geographic area, because those are the 2 elements. And maybe you might want to say marketing leadership role in Metro Detroit, because it could be a director level, it could be a VP, it could be a CMO, or it could be a manager, depending on the size of the company. But use that feature not only for the name pronunciation, but to put a little bit in about yourself. And especially if you have a name that is commonly mispronounced, where, just like I did with Carrie, I'm like, it's Chochette, right? She's like, no, it's Chochet. Well, if that happens to you a lot, like, let's help people out. I
Right.
never want to mispronounce someone's name. And, you know, it's always really nice when I go on their profile right before, if I have a phone call or an interview, and I can play that button a couple times and I hear them saying it, not a phonetic
Yeah,
representation.
no, I love that. Yeah, and I've seen you actually post about that. So, and then I know there was some dialogue on your page yesterday about the mispronunciations and whatnot. So I think it's great to kind of clear up that confusion. I went from maiden name Cooper to
Oh,
Shoshay.
yeah.
So this is something I'm like always dealing with of, um, there's a million ways to pronounce my last name incorrectly. You were close at least, so that was
Yeah,
good.
I was in the neighborhood, but I was around the
Yeah,
block.
yeah.
Um,
What any other
yeah,
exciting
there's
features?
another feature that's on your profile. It's actually called the featured section. I'm going to hold my phone up so you guys can see
Okay.
it. So it's right below the about section, and I'm showing you the mobile view of this. And you can, it's almost like Pinterest meets LinkedIn, if you're familiar with that. So Pinterest, you pin things, you know, into categories and
Right.
buckets and things like that. The featured section, you can select items that you want to feature on your profile, and you can feature things that you have posted. So a LinkedIn post can go in there. You can
Okay.
put articles, which are LinkedIn blogs, in there. You can put external links to websites, portfolios, web pages, YouTube videos,
Okay.
anything with an external link can go in there, or you can upload media into that.
Okay.
And I like to think about the featured section on your profile. It's kind of like when I go to the grocery store, what are they featuring on the end of the aisle?
Yeah.
You know, last week when I went to Kroger, it was Nabisco wheat thins, right?
Sure.
And if I go there in another week, it's probably going to be the graham crackers and chocolate bars and marshmallow s'mores. You know, it's going to be
Right.
something different. So think about what are your business or career goals on LinkedIn, and then what are maybe 2 to 3 items that you could put into that featured section that can help to highlight for your audience. And just like the grocery store swaps out things every week or so,
Yeah.
keep putting fresh content in that featured section. You know, I'll swap mine out weekly. You might just do it monthly or quarterly, but try to put new items in there. So for you, Carrie, it might be if you have some hot jobs or
Sure.
you know, things that you wanted to kind of bring more visibility to, you can put them in there. Or it might just be a description of what Purple Squirrel Advisors is about and how you help companies find the purple squirrels, you know.
Okay.
So maybe a feature
That's your
like
like prime real estate, I guess, is the best way to put it. Because those end caps and those
yes.
those high traffic areas of the grocery store, those are prime real estate, and this is the same thing. So you really want to leverage it. It's the message, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You know, and one other thing I just want to comment on, I'm like you're like throughout our talk today, you've just given some great like one line, like I'm good at this. And I think that's the hardest part for people sometimes when they think about their headline and some of those key areas of the profile. It's like, how do I get it to, you know, and to that one line, that most impactful statement, those kind of those elevator pitches. And I think that's what you're really good at, is getting those sound bites, getting to the meat and the most important part. But that's a hard exercise, I think, sometimes for people to do on their own, I've found.
It is. And I think it's really hard for us to market ourselves. And I think when you're in career transition, it becomes really difficult because you want a job. You just want to be back to work. That's the goal. And the longer you're not working, sometimes the more difficult it becomes to say, here's specifically what I want for my dream job, because now it's no longer about what you want, but it's what you need. You need to have a job. You need to have income. You need to have benefits. And even like maybe if you're open to work and you're working, but you're looking for your next opportunity. And I've heard, and you've probably been seeing the trends right now too, Carrie, on a lot of people kind of sheltered in place, so to speak, over this year. They didn't look for a new job. And even if they were thinking about, they kind of put that on the shelf. They're like, I'm not going to move right now because there's just too much unknown. It's better to be an employer where I have a stable income. I know what the expectations are. There's too much stress going on with this whole pandemic thing. I'd rather be facing the known, even if I'm not completely happy with it, than to go out and face the unknown and get myself into a situation where my boss is worse, the climate's not conducive, they don't know me and my background, so they're not going to be as accommodating about me with my kids at home and things like that. So a lot of people are kind of sheltering in place. And then when you ask them, well, what are you looking for? And then it's like your brain becomes foggy. You're like, I don't know. I don't know what I want because I haven't allowed myself to think about what truly makes me happy. And now I'm feeling like I sheltered in place so long. Now I'm miserable and I just want to get out. That's what I want.
Right.
I just want to get out, you know?
Well, so yeah, so I think what you're getting at too is something that I was actually going to write about today. I think it's really interesting. There's researchers that are predicting the Great Resignation. Have you
Yeah.
heard that term? Yeah. So
Yes.
there's
So
all
they're calling it like a resignation wave, or there's different
yeah.
terms that are seeing out there right
Yeah.
now. Right?
Yeah. So I've seen the Great Resignation. I was actually going to ask you if you've had clients or if you've been hearing from people that are really
Mhm.
trying to make that, and I know the word pivot is totally overused, but
Yeah.
I don't know any other way to describe it, like where they're saying, oh, I want to, I've been doing this, like this has made me think about what's fulfilling, what makes me happy. And I've
Absolutely.
identified this other path is like, I want to do that. That's going to make me fulfilled and happy. And so now they've got to reframe their experience. Is that something that you're hearing about within your client base?
Yeah, what's interesting is when we are I don't want to say forced, because that sounds like, I mean, we've complied with what needs to be done as a society, which is sheltering in our homes and staying around our family. But we see what happens over time. I mean, I don't think we were meant to be in our homes, Carrie, for as long as we have been with our family members, and it's been stressful. And I even think about my own family. My husband, I had a home office, so I'm in my home office. It's my space. I have a door, I can close it. But my husband started at the kitchen table, and then he was in the living room, and then eventually he set up a home office in the basement, and he's got a door, and he put his nameplate from work on the basement door. But we make accommodations to make our environments comfortable with what we're doing, but we also start to go, what am I, this chair is not that comfortable. I'm going to put a pillow behind it. Right. And we start to think about what would make me happy. And then we also, I think over the past year, we've all faced our own mortality. I mean, I was watching the movie over the weekend, I Am Legend, with Will Smith. You ever see that movie where there's a virus that takes over the earth? And
yeah, I think I've seen like pieces of it. I think one of my kids wanted to watch it, and then I think it got like scary for like some of the kids. We had to turn it off, but I've seen parts of it.
I fast forwarded through the parts where the scary beasts in the room, and I can't watch that stuff. But the whole premise is, the person in the movie, she came out with this cure for cancer, and it's 100% effective, and it's like this super virus, but it's a good virus. And then all of a sudden the virus turns, and it basically, everybody gets rabies and they die in the movie. And there's only a couple of people late, but you go through this point that you start to kind of question, and I think we've all gone through this in the past year. What if, this thing is a lot worse, and what if we don't make it out of here? And what if my parents don't survive it? What if my family members, other people? And you start to kind of look at what makes me happy. And it's not just the pillow behind your chair that's making you comfortable. It's, do I really like my job? I mean, if I was not here a year from now, would I be happy living where I'm at and being in the career that I'm in? And I've even seen people pivoting entirely. I mean, I'm using the word pivot entirely, going, I don't like a desk job anymore. I don't want to work for someone. I want to go on my own. I want to become an independent consultant. Or I don't like accounting. I want to do graphic design. I mean, I think when you're doing the same thing day after day after day after day in the same room with the stress of the family being around and everything, you start to really, you're in your head a lot, right? And you start to question what does make me happy. So when I heard this term of the Great Resignation, I'm like, yeah, of course it's going to happen. I think the economy is getting better. The companies that put hiring freezes in place last year are starting to get more aggressive at hiring now. So we had a great market, as you know, before the pandemic started, and then everything kind of froze up almost overnight. And there was a flood of candidates coming into the market. And then towards the end of last year, things started to turn around. We got kind of our balance again. We got kind of our hold on things, and the jobs started to get posted. And all the good people, I don't want to say good people, I mean, there's immediate opportunities that people that were active in the job search market were being found and finding opportunities, and they were back to work. And now we're going, others are doing the same thing. And now you have the people that were sheltering in place at their jobs. Now they're going, well, maybe I want to leave. Well, guess what? That creates a vacancy behind them. So I think it's kind of cyclical, but it totally makes sense to me. And I have seen people coming up and saying, and I work with people confidentially. So I'll have candidates that will approach me, and they're an executive level role, director level or above with an organization. And they say, I need to make a move. I don't want my employer or my coworkers to know. I need to ramp up my LinkedIn presence. I don't want flags to go out when I'm making profile changes. Can you help me? And by the way, don't say anything to anybody that you're working with me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm seeing it in my own business.
Yeah, and by the way, the LinkedIn isn't doing like they used to years ago, have those updates, whereas but they don't do that anymore, right? So that's a misconception that they're doing that with the notifications.
Right. Yeah,
I saw you comment on somebody's post recently where you said, "Gosh, I didn't think they did that anymore," and I haven't seen it in a long time. So,
and the person I was commenting on, she's a resume writer, and she was giving people advice, saying when she works with people on their profile, she says, "Turn this setting off." And I said, "Well, hold on here. I think that might be advice that was based on the LinkedIn, from probably 5 years or more ago.
right?
No longer, I mean, because you don't see it in your homepage feed anymore, Carrie. Like, remember we used to see Brenda updated her photo, John updated his headline.
Well, there's too much activity now, right? They want to prioritize that. Like that activity isn't that helpful, right? So they want to get that other activity out there.
It's annoying. It's clutter. So the only thing that LinkedIn will push out now, and with your approval, if you start a new job, but it has to be in the month. So right now we're in May 2021. If I were to have started a new job in February, it would still show on my profile, but it won't push out a notification saying Brenda started a new job. So if you want the benefit of that, you got to make sure that the notification occurs within the month that the role started.
You have to post, you have to post it when it's current versus, oh, I started 6 weeks ago, I should update my LinkedIn profile.
Right.
You're not going to get that same.
So even if you started in April, if you want to get the benefit of the notification going out, which helps visibility for your company, by the way, and I would recommend you do that, you want to put that you started in May and then leave it up for like maybe 2 or 3 weeks and then change it back to April later. And then when you get people saying, congratulations, oh, I thought you started earlier in this year. And you could say, actually, I started in April, but I wanted to make sure the notification went out on LinkedIn. Yeah. So
that's a good tip. I like that tip. That is good. So if somebody just, starting a new job, you can be so busy. So this is a way to still kind of get the word out. And then, like you said, you can go and change it later.
Turn it off later. Yeah, you can adjust it later. So the new job goes out as a notification. If you get a promotion, that will go out as a notification. So if it says Brenda was promoted from marketing director to chief marketing officer, that would go out. But the month that promotion in has to be the current month. So if it was, again, 2 months ago, it's not going to push the notification out to people. Okay. And the only other thing, a notification will go out if you start an education or if you complete your education. Mm-hmm. So if I add in that I'm pursuing my PhD at University of Michigan, no way I'm ever doing that. But if I put it on my profile, I would get the opportunity to notify your network. If I had that turned on, it would say Brenda started her PhD at University of Michigan. And then once you complete it, you put an end date in your education. It would say Brenda completed her PhD.
Got it. Okay.
That's it. That's the only thing. And you do have a notify your network. There's a little green button in there. If it's shut off, it's not going to be pushed out to your network.
Got it. Okay. Well, no, that's a great tip. And this has been really interesting. On the topic of the Great Resignation, I think one other just trend, I mean, we've been talking about it, and then I've just personally, experienced it and heard about it, is just kind of what's important to people. Like things have shifted, but this idea of I can work anywhere. So I recently went to Hawaii. It was the 7th attempt of this trip, and we finally made it. But it was really interesting. I was in like this little tiny town, and I was in a coffee shop or something, and I overheard somebody saying, oh, I just moved here a few months ago. I work for an accounting firm, and I can work anywhere. So here I am in Hawaii.
Yeah,
and I mean, and I actually know like 3 or 4 people that have moved to Hawaii in the last year because their job can be anywhere. I know somebody, a healthcare professional, that decided to move to Hawaii, like several other people. So I think that's the other trend, is there's a lot of like migration or, moving within the US. People are saying, oh, well, I can keep my job and go here. I've always wanted to live there. So I think it's an interesting, time, and it's a kind of a difficult thing for certain employers to navigate through if they don't have that vision where they're going to have a remote workforce long term. So because now the talent pools have changed, so the talent pools for certain companies that are viewing their workforce that way, they've increased. And if you're an employer that's like, I want somebody here in the office, now your talent pool has dramatically shrunk. So it's just Yeah. Any final thoughts, Brenda? And then just would love, I know people will know how to reach you. They can find your LinkedIn profile, but any other final thoughts as we wrap up here?
I just want to say, thank you again, Carrie, for bringing me on. I think you're going to look back someday and go, "Wow, remember that first show?" And you're gonna look at things that you'll change and you'll do differently. But for all of us, it's a journey, and you learn by going through the process. I mean, education experience is the best type of education, right? Like going through the process and learning from things. So, and for people that are watching, if you are somebody who's maybe looking for that next career opportunity, be active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Go and post today, and maybe even when you're done watching this video, click to share it and just say, check out this great video featuring at Carrie Chauchet and at Brenda Meller, who are talking about some of the new LinkedIn features, as well as some things to consider when using LinkedIn for a job search. So it's a way of saying, hey, I'm looking for a job, without directly saying it, by kind of sharing that interview link along. And then I would just encourage, if there's any employers that are watching this, to, if they're looking for some help finding their next purple squirrel, if you will, to reach out to you and your team, because you've been wonderful to work with, Carrie, and we've been connected with each other for a while, and I look forward to continuing to support you in your business.
Well, thank you so much, Brendan. No, it's been great to have you today. You bring so much great energy, and again, that you're known as a helper, a giver, and so this has been great. I just want to make two final things. So first of all, if you're watching this in playback, continue to interact with us. We'll respond throughout the day on any questions on what we've covered here. And also, if you've got any ideas on potential future guests, let us know. I mean, we're going to cover topics like networking, and other topics that are kind of around what we've discussed today, in other areas. And so if you have a speaker recommendation, please drop a comment below. Let us know. And and again, Brenda and I will both respond if there's questions on what we've discussed today throughout the day. So thanks for all of you who joined, and we look forward to seeing you next time.